Hi YouTubers, this is another video from your friendly neighborhood reviewer, Evelyn. Today we're going to be reviewing episode 7 and 8 of the revival series of Quantum Leap. To any new viewers who want to know why it's called a revival series, I recommend you see the thumbnail here of the first video that I did. I also created a playlist. So before we start, I want to say a big thank you to any new subscribers and to any new viewers. I really appreciate it. We can hit the subscribe button, keep the channel growing. So without further ado, let's review the two episodes. So episode 7, we get the Halloween episode in which Ben Song gets leaped into the body of a father, aka priest, called Father Davenport. Very cliche surname. We can see in this episode is very homage to The Exorcist, in which Father Davenport, aka Ben, is called to do an exorcism of a young girl. This is set mid-50s. It's kind of like Easter eggs if anybody may know about the history of The Exorcist. The guy who wrote the book apparently based it on a true story of a real exorcism that happened between the mid-50s. So he's called there to help exorcise the ghost from this young girl. Now, this young girl that's been strapped down to the bed, identical to Linda Blair's character in The Exorcist of Reagan, very identical. So, take it for what it is. And Addison's there. Ben's struggling with the idea of having to do an exorcism, in which of course that goes against his beliefs as a scientist, and also Addison there trying to figure out, what's going on. So there's some supernatural themes within this series. Well, apparently supernatural themes, and there's a callback of Sam Beckett from the original series, in which Ian tells Addison that Sam also believed that God was guiding their leaps. So, just to get to the long story short, Ben finds out that the mother of this young girl was helping poisoning her own daughter, and also with the brother of the young girl's father, to get the inheritance. Because initially Ben drank some water, and then he started to hallucinate that the girl was levitating off on the floor, and he saw a black mist of smoke. And also within the episode, Addison loses contact with Ben and also the whole team, and they end up finding out that Janice Calavici is the cause of them losing contact with Ben. So when Ben reveals the mystery that there is no exorcism, it's just a murder plot going on, it gets revealed that the thing that was trying to contact Ben was Janice. She only managed to get in contact with Ben, and she ends up telling Ben that she needs to warn him about something. And before she could warn him, he happens to leap to the new body. So he ends up leaping into the body of a 16-year-old boy, coincidentally also called Ben. In the mid-leap, he leaps into the boy's body and he's running away with some other group of kids. So there was 4 other individuals, a girl with mixed race girl, a boy, and another young girl, and also Ben. So basically episode 8 is about this kind of resort camp or camp for troubled youth, in which all the teenagers are there. But of course, with these infamous stories about these camps, they've been abused horribly in this camp, in which they would lock them in this kind of wooden containers in the heat, so solitary confinement. And they had enough, and they decided to run away, steal the keys from the guards, and steal the van. And of course, Ben is trying to navigate the situation as a 16-year-old boy. Each one of them have their own issues, in which they deal with social topics like drug abuse, self-harm, and kleptomania with autism, and the other person, anger issues. So when Ben finds Addison again, Ben manages to tell Addison that he got in contact with a person called Janice, and then Addison's really surprised. So she goes and tells Ben, reveals the fact that they know that Ben had been working with Janice for the last 6 months, in which this leaves Ben stunned. And Addison says, "What did Janice want to tell you?" And the only thing he can say, the only thing I managed to hear from Janice was she was going to warn me about something, but unfortunately I leaped into this body. So the whole episode is just basically about the troubled youth of that time and exposing the case in which they do, because one of the girls that's very vulnerable, she got kicked out basically by her parents for being lesbian or gay. She has an uncle that conveniently works for the news as a reporter, so that's convenient. And also to top it off, within episode 8, Ben manages to remember the reason he leaped. I won't reveal that yet, because When the group of kids were in the van, they unfortunately crash, and Addison tells Ben that within the future none of the kids survive. They all split up and they all die of dehydration and X, Y, and Z, because of course in the episode we have the notion of how teenagers view life, because of course when you're a teenager you think you're invincible, that any idea you think about it's gonna work out no matter how ridiculous or unrealistic it may sound. So Ben is there as the voice of reason, in which they do find, Ben says, oh, let's go down here to find a creek. And when they get to the creek, they find out that it's completely dried up. In that moment Ben kind of, I think, loses hope, or the body he's in that has autism, you kind of see that side coming out. But then they see that there's a water pipe. And then they manage to find this cabin that's like legendary between the students, of a resting spot, in which they go there. In that moment in the cabin, all the young people, they're talking about their lives, what they want to do, and then the young girl, or the uncle as a reporter, she phones him. But just as they were getting comfortable, the other wardens of the camp find them, and the young girl, who has the uncle as a reporter, sacrifices herself. And of course, like prior, she had broken her ankle, and they managed to make a makeshift splint. And of course, Ben then says, this leap is not just about saving the teenagers, it's about saving them and exposing the camp, because all the other teenagers within the camp are going through the same treatment. So they managed to call the girl's uncle, and just before they were going to take all of them away, the girl's uncle comes with a big news report, the news van, and all the reporters are very, what are you gonna do with my niece, that type of thing. So just as everything's getting cool, good and everything, Ben tells Addison, I remembered the reason why I leaped. And then Addison says, why? And that is to save you. And that's why he leaps. Now in that moment I was like, what? Okay, that's a noble cause, but how would he know? Now I mean somebody from, it gets very confusing. I imagine some other leaper, could be Ben for all we know in the future, leaps back into another body in Ben's timeline before he leaped, kind of very confusing. So there's somebody from the future went to the past to tell Ben that Addison is going to die, we don't know how. And of course this is the mid-season finale, so we're left with a cliffhanger to find out in January of next year. So Quantum Leap, these episodes are fairly easy to explain. And I do like the mystery, and I hope for the second part of the season we finally get to see so if Ben's intentions was this to save Addison, so it wasn't a bad reason whatsoever, and I don't think Jan is as evil as everybody's make her out to be, because she did say that Ben went to her. So therefore somebody from the future that leaped back around that time era of Ben went and told Ben that little fact about Addison. Of course Addison is Ben's love of his life, so of course he wants to save her. Anyway, you guys let me know what did you think about episode 7 and 8, because 7 was the Halloween episode, in which I was expecting to see the supernatural, but then they did the thing that was a logical explanation. It's about a murder plot going on. And of course episode 8 is about the social and topical issues that's going on, and of course we have the cliffhanger. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts about this episode, and if there's any other different series you'd like me to review, let me know. So as I leave you always, bye.